Coach Grice. Here we are, another week deep into the playoffs. Moving forward, got a lot of action going on this week on the Talking Preps OT podcast. And hey, it's playoff time. It's like we got to flip the switch and bring in the big timer, and I think we've done it today, bringing in Julius Chambers head coach Glenwood Ferebee. Big time today, and you made it happen, Coach.
Man, this is, I always tell those guys over there, man, professionally, I hate you. But personally, I mean, it's a guy that I consider a friend and a guy that, I want to, get everybody the chance to get to understand him and get to know him. I mean, he's a fantastic guy, first-class guy. And I think, he's had a lot of great experiences that, fit in line with a lot of the guests that we've had. So to me, it was a no-brainer, and I'm glad we could get Coach on here.
Well, let's not waste time. Let's bring him in here to the Talking Preps OT studio. And bring on the Julius Chambers head coach, Glenwood Ferebee, so we can maximize all this time we've got with him today. Hey, Coach, appreciate you joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Oh, of course, Coach. Hey, I was going to get you on here. I tell you all the time, we got to get you out here more, Coach. You're too behind the scenes for me. But, it's great to have you on here to talk with us. We're going to start this how we start with everybody. And I think even more so, it's so important for you. You kind of came on the scene here, honestly, I would say more, middle or tail end of your coaching career. So can you walk us back and kind of give us the start of your, playing career, coaching history, and how you got to this point?
Well, I went to high school in Virginia Beach, Virginia. Funny thing is, me and Plexico Burris was high school teammates coming out of high school. I was a quarterback, and he was my wideout. From there on, I went to Liberty University and played under Sam Rutigliano, the Cleveland Browns former head coach from years back. And I got into coaching, man, at the age 22, fresh out of college. Did a few assistant jobs and got a couple of coordinator jobs, and I got my first head coaching job at the age 29 at a school called Lakeland High School out in Suffolk, Virginia. I was there for 5 years. When I took that program over, they were 0-10 like 3 years in a row before I got the job. So I think that's one of the most challenging jobs that I've had since I started coaching, to be able to take a program like that and being able to turn it around and play a team like Oscar Smith every year. Then a couple of years we played them down to the wire. And I think I had maybe 1,300 kids in the building, and I think Oscar Smith had like 2,900. From there, I went to Hampton University as an offensive coordinator, quarterback coach for a year. And then I landed at Indian River High School, where Alonzo Mourning graduated from. A historic program in Chesapeake that was, looking to rebound itself. It was in the same situation as Lakeland. I think they were 0-10 2 years prior to me taking that job. Then the first year I was there, we went to the playoffs. Second year, we was in the state semifinals. Stayed there for 5 years and then ended up here at Vance. Well, Chambers.
No, good to see. That's a struggle for everybody, trying to switch the names, albeit for a wonderful reason. But let's go back to that. I always talk about, the story, like, we got, in the spring, we got our butts kicked, by a large margin against when I was at Hopewell. But, one of the big things that you said to me was, you'd been there before. So, you talked about at Lakeland, at Indian River, coaching against, a top team such as Oscar Smith. Can you talk about that time and, going into some of those games and your mentality where you knew, like, hey, we got to give everything we got. I don't have the guys like I have here at Chambers. How did you handle that? And what were some of the funny stories of just trying to get guys ready and maybe it not working like you thought?
Oh, man, it was rough. It was a rough few years to get those guys going and get them confident enough, to go out and play a team like Oscar Smith that was a state perennial powerhouse. But we took the small wins, man. And I think that's, the way that we built that program up. And any program that I took over that was like that. You take the small wins. We had two other schools in Suffolk, Nancy River High School and Kingsford High School. So to start off, we wanted to be the city champs. So we wanted to beat Kingsford and Nancy River to, get our confidence going. And then going to an Oscar Smith and, lay it all on the line. And we took the smallest wins in those games, even though we got beat, sometimes it was 49-7 or 49-0. It was 7-0 at halftime. So those were the little small wins that, we took where I said, hey, we can play with those guys. We just got to play a full 4 quarters and get in the weight room and do those type of things. And, once they started to gain that confidence, that's when the program turned because we won a couple city championships. We played Oscar Smith tough. and then Oscar Smith became the measuring stick for us. We prepared to beat Oscar Smith every week. Even though we didn't play Oscar Smith, we prepared to beat Oscar Smith every week. And that carried us all the way through the season to play Oscar Smith.
Hey, Coach, you mentioned Oscar Smith. I had a chance to go up there and watch them play a couple years ago, and they come out there with the cage or whatever it is. All the guys get in there, and they start rocking and rolling. I mean, I think that's an incredible environment for football. And you're right. I mean, they are kind of the standard up there and have been for a long time. But just talk about that 757 in general. You know, you look back in history, you know, Lawrence Taylor, Ronald Curry, Michael Vick, I think Allen Iverson even came from there maybe. I mean, that's what is it about that area that has just produced such tremendous football talent?
It's a talent-rich area, man. It's kind of like, it reminds me of Charlotte. Charlotte's, much bigger. It's much bigger, but the talent level is about even. I know the kids here are a little bigger. They're a little bigger than the kids I had back home. But over the years, man, you can see it. The competition level of guys playing each other back and back, basketball-wise, it was AAU that we were playing on the same AAU basketball team, so they were competing with each other, or they were playing Pop Warner ball against each other. So it was more or less them competing against each other early on in their careers to make them who the guys that they were. And it's been a lot of guys. I think we missing some guys. You got J.R. Reed, you got Alonzo Mourning, Joe Smith, which was the #1 pick in the NBA draft. A lot of guys I've forgotten about because of guys like Allen Iverson and Michael Vick. But man, it's a talent-rich area, the talent-rich area, and it's going to continue to be that way as long as they keep competing against each other at a young age.
And just to follow, Coach, you know, you're familiar with all that talent there in the Tidewater region. It's phenomenal. And then obviously the Northern Virginia area up there, the D.C. area, north of Richmond's also got a tremendous amount of talent. And I've even seen some good ball come out of, you know, the Danville area, kind of that area as well.
Yes.
But you know that area and that state so well. How do you see North Carolina competing just from a talent standpoint and maybe a toughness of making a state championship run in one state versus the other, and just kind of give us a comparison of the two?
I think Charlotte football, I can't speak for the rest of the state, but the Charlotte football in the Mecklenburg County, we're much bigger. We're much bigger and we're much stronger, and we're tougher, a little tougher here than it would be back home. The guys back home, like when I first got here, the team that I had and the team that Mallow Creek had, if you took one of those teams back home, that some of them teams would look like middle school teams compared to the size of the guys that were on those teams. So that's the major difference. My safety, my first year, Jordan Harris would have been probably a middle linebacker back at home, but he was a free safety for us. He probably would have been a 3 or 4 star linebacker back at home, but just off his size and the way that he runs and the way that he hits. So the size difference is much bigger. The kids are much bigger here than they are back home.
No, I can understand that for sure. One thing I want to get back to, talking about you coaching, in the 757 area, you were at Indian River. One thing, in fact, you told me, you coach with your brother, who is now the head coach at Indian River High School. Can you talk about, coaching with him and how that relationship was and is? And, hey, could we get another Ferebee here in Charlotte? I mean, what are the chances?
I've worked on it. With him, but everybody that's young wants to be a head coach. So he's a head coach right now, and he's doing pretty well. He's taking that program over from when I left and maintained it. And he has a young team this year. But it's been times, man, where me and my brother we bit each other's head off in the middle of a game because we're both competitive and things like that. So it's fun. It's fun to see him now call me for advice. When I was trying to give him advice way back then, and he didn't listen. But now he understands that a head coach job is a little different than being an assistant. So he takes the advice from me and he runs with it. They're doing pretty well.
What was that moment, coaching with your brother? What was that moment where Big Brother was right? Where you're sitting here telling him something and he's beating his head against the wall, and then you're actually right. What was that story? Because I know you got that story there.
So he used to come to practice late sometimes. And I was like, hey, man, you got to act like a head football coach. You got to be to practice on time. So now that he has the head coaching job, his coach is short to practice late. And he'd be pissed. And I say, hey, now, being that I'm your brother, You used to do me the same way. So this is karma. This is karma. And him having to deal with parents is the biggest thing. And if you ever coach with me, I allow my coaches to coach. I'm trying to see everything and, be around and help. And, because I've been coaching, head coach for about 15 years now. So it's not as imperative to me to call plays and, to do those things. But, I just want to help young guys grow like somebody helped me grow when I was coming up. So I dealt with the parents and things back home, and he never had to deal with the parents. So now that he has to deal with the parents, the advice I gave him when I left, I said, hey, some things you shouldn't do. And he did it anyway. And it backfired on him. So now he's calling me for more advice.
No, sometimes it happens that way. Brother's right. But, I think, we kind of want to flip to you coming from the 757 and making your way down here to Charlotte. Can you talk about that transition, how it came about? Because, I think, when the job came open, we all knew that was a high-profile job, even with that short time frame, being able to get in, get settled, establish everything, and get a season going. So talk about that and, even what made you leave at such a late time in the football calendar.
It was funny, man. The crazy thing is I've been trying to get to Charlotte for almost 3 years. I applied for the RGKL job. I applied for the Huff job. I applied for the West Charlotte job. What else? I applied for the Independence job a few years back and didn't get a call, didn't get an interview. So the crazy thing was we had just came off a 13-1 season. Finally had beat Oscar Smith in the school's 20-year. It was like a 20-year drought from them beating Oscar Smith, and we finally beat them. So we was riding high. I had a pretty good team coming back as well. And just so happened, one of the coaches on staff here at Vance had seen me speak at Virginia Tech Clinic and reached out to me about the job. And to be honest with you, I didn't even know anything about Vance. I had to go, do my research, watch huddle film, to see what, type of job it was. And to my surprise, it was a pretty good job. It was a pretty good job. And then Carlos Richardson had graduated from Norfolk State. So he had knew some guys that I had coached with over, the years that went to Norfolk State with him. So he reached out to those guys, do a little history on me. And then, he called me and offered me the job. And everything else, I talked to Coach Brand about the job. Once the process was going on, I talked to him about the job. And we had a few conversations about it. And, he basically told me, hey, he said, I think you'd be a good fit. I think you'd be a good fit. And my son was living in Atlanta at the time. So I had been trying to either get here or to Atlanta, somewhere midway or in Atlanta to be able to meet closer to my son. Because my son had moved to Georgia when he was three. So for like 6 years, I was living in Virginia. He was living in Georgia. So that was, the reason why I took the job so late, because it was like, okay, I didn't apply for this job. They came looking for me. So it was a no-brainer once I watched the film and seen guys like Power Echols coming back. I seen Stephon Thompson and, Steven Sings and all those guys coming back. And I even looked at that team and I said, hey, I could possibly win a state championship with this team. Even before I stepped foot in the building, I looked at him and said I probably could win a state championship with him. So that's what led me here.
Well, Coach, just for the record, I'm going to throw it out there because you've probably just immensely upset the fan base at AK and at Indy and at West Charlotte for them passing over you and talk about hindsight being what it is. You got to say that was probably a boneheaded move by them. But anyway, you kind of answered the question I was going to throw out there is if you were surprised with just how quickly you put the team together at then Vance and made that championship run. But I wanted to talk about Power Echols. Obviously, I think that he is one of the best players I've seen. I look at that guy very, very rarely. I've been either as a coach since 98 or dealing with media and stuff for the past 15 or 20 years. I look and, very rarely will I ever try to say, hey, that guy's an NFL or that guy's going to play on Sunday. But I look at Power Echols and he just appears to be the most complete player that I think I've ever seen and just kind of wanted to just get you to talk about that and how he fit into, you making that championship run so early.
When I talked to Coach Brand about the job, that was one of the guys that he pointed out. He said, Coach, he said, that kid, he said, you're going to be amazed at what type of kid he is. Because, Power's in Arizona. when I first got the job. So I didn't get to actually meet Power until the summer. So I had never, met him. I talked to him on the phone, but I had never seen him practice, never seen him run, never seen him do anything until he came back for the summer. And we was in the Powerade Passing League tournament. He came back probably a day or two before that, and he played. Just to see him run around, man, he's 100 miles per hour all the time. And it's rare that you find a kid like that. He literally, you know how they say, practice the way you play? He literally does that. He's running from sideline to sideline. He's chasing deep balls from Mike linebacker. And it was amazing to see. And like I told the coaches, when I got, I said, Coach, he's going to be a day one pick. If he can stay healthy and he gets to college, he's going to be a day one pick. And then not even off his athletic ability. It's more or less him being a leader. And I think that's his biggest quality, him being a leader and getting the other guys around him to play with the same intensity that he played with. So when he left, it kind of, was like, who we gonna have to replace him? Who we gonna have to replace him? But we've done a pretty good job with, some of the younger guys that played behind him, trying to replicate some of the things that he did when he was here. So he made a good measuring stick for us, Coach.
Speaking of another guy that runs 100 miles an hour, you've got that little junior in the backfield, Hollywood, Dalen Smothers. I think that he is probably the most electric running back athlete that I've seen in this state, just in terms of just an electric cuts and quickness and just the pizzazz that he's got on the field, probably since Nick Maddox, who played at Kannapolis in 96, 97, 98, went on to play at Florida State and had a brief NFL career. He's just kind of got that same little stop and go electricity. You don't necessarily have the numbers because you don't have to rely on him every play like maybe some teams would. But just tell us what it's like to coach him. And just maybe, we only see the small snapshot of him on Friday nights, but what it's like to coach him during practice and what kind of kid he is.
Great kid, man. And he's been a blessing for us. He works his tail off, even, during the off season, he works out, especially during that COVID season. You can, see his Twitter. He was out there working out on his own. He has goals that he sets for himself. And he's doing everything he can to achieve them. And he's holding his teammates accountable. And like I said, them guys seen what Power Echoes and Stephon Thompson, did when they were here. And they're trying to replicate it. Holding guys accountable, working hard themselves in practice. And I think the thing about Hollywood, I've seen Percy Harden play in person. And he has that same type of start and go like Percy Harden had. He may not be as straight line fast as Percy, but that effect that he has on the game where every time he touches the ball, it could go to distance. That's the type of effect that he brings to our team, where you have the game plan for him. Even outside of the guys like Concepcion and the quarterback, Anshawn Camp, and those guys, you still have to prepare for Hollywood, which gives us some leeway on offense. So he's a blessing to have.
Definitely, and a curse for some of us trying to stop him and be successful as well. I'll add there. I kind of want to talk about, we talked about you getting here to Charlotte, but also coming into an established program as Vance, now Chambers, is and was, it's kind of a tricky balance of establishing who you are and infusing your culture as opposed to, allowing that established culture to kind of coexist in that weird way. I feel like you've done an amazing job and are a great case study for guys that are trying to do that. And could you kind of go into detail about your thoughts coming in and establishing your culture and how we can see now it's clearly your team, but how that slowly kind of matriculated over time?
I think when you've coached teams that have been 0-10 and they have a losing mentality, you have to go in there and instill a culture into that program, a winning culture in that program. And every head coach has their thing that they do. When I took this job, I didn't have to disturb the culture that was already here. I didn't have to disturb it. They already knew how to win. They already knew how to work hard. But the thing about the difference between me and Brand is more of a militant. He's more of a militant type coach, just from hearing the stories. I have never seen him coach up in person. He's more of a militant guy, in your face, get on the kids. I do some of the same things, but I have fun with my kids. And I think, that's what you see. You see that on film when my kids celebrate with each other, running down, to the end zone and doing those things. I didn't have to change much from Coach Brand. And I think if I would have done that, I think it would have backfired. on me, because you could see when I first got here, you could see the resistance. And I think a lot of people didn't see that, the first couple of weeks of the season. You met a lot of resistance. I think things changed with my team, Lake Norman, when we had to come back and win. I think in the last minute of the game, we scored and had to kick an onside kick, got the onside kick, and we had to score again. And I never panicked. And, I told the kids, I said, if we settle down, we'll be fine. And so I think now they have adapted that no game is, too big for them. So they always play calm. After that game, they always play calm. So that's the thing. I think that's the culture that I, instilled into them from that game on. But I did meet a lot of resistance leading up to that, to that moment. And then after that, they was like, okay, well, I guess Coach does know what he's talking about. And we just ran with it after that. But, as a head football coach, you want to build a program in your image. I mean, I think that's why we take jobs. But, when I took this job over, we had a bunch of seniors that had been here 3 or 4 years. We had some juniors that were starters for 2 years. You don't want to disturb that, but so much, especially when they're already winning. And I think that's what I did here. I didn't disturb it much. Coach Brand did a heck of a job with these guys. And I tell the people all the time, we didn't lift weights at Indian River the way we lift weights here. And I didn't require my teams to do it. But Coach Brand instilled in these kids that they lift weights 5 times a week. So that was new to me. So now we lift 5 times a week. So I took some stuff from Coach Brand that was already instilled in his program and left it here. So that's a testament of the type of coach that he was when he was here.
No, that's awesome. And yeah, for everyone knows for sure, Coach Brand made sure his guys got in the weight room, and y'all, you guys look like you continue that trend. Following up on that, you guys as a football program, I would say, are probably one of the most social, media present teams I think out there, and I think that's something that's helped. And even people that maybe don't know you would think that's against or not in the same direction that you would kind of have your team. Can you talk about that and hey, you got to talk about the quote of the year. Even though I'm at Creek, you got to talk about the quote of the year. It ain't a rivalry if they can't win no more. so talk about that and just how that has kind of played into your culture and building that brand over there at Julius Chambers.
When I first got here, I'm not a big social media guy. I never was. But when you hire guys on your staff that have been in Charlotte for a while, that know the landscape of the city. They know the landscape of the city, and a lot of guys knows what it takes to survive in Charlotte. So Coach Lash encouraged me to unblock my Twitter, my Instagram, and all that. Everything was on private when I first got here. Now everything is because he said, Coach, people need to know who you are. If we're gonna brand this thing the right way, people need to know who you are. So I kind of let him take that on himself. Long as we're not doing anything malicious and giving myself and the school a bad name, I'm all for it. And I'm glad I did, because now look at us. People across the nation know who we are now. So I think it's a good thing, and sometimes it can be a bad thing as well. And hopefully it don't turn bad. Hopefully we won't, we put out these videos and we lose, and now everybody comes to our heads after that. But no, it's been good, man. It's been good. The kids love it. And that's why they play hard. They play hard because they know the coaches and the staff are going to go hard for them, whether it's social media, and I think social media helps out recruiting with our kids as well. Because college coaches, the funny story was the Carolina Panthers donated some equipment to us, and the equipment guy drove up in his truck and got out. And Coach, he follows us on social media. He's like, I love watching your video. The equipment is from Carolina Panthers. Yeah. So I knew then that social media plays an effect, because you take a guy that's at an NFL team and he's following your page just to see, the kids having fun and, watching the videos.
Wow. Great stuff, Coach. Couple questions left for me. And I want to throw this out there. I think that you are arguably, and it ain't even really arguably, you guys are in the toughest 4A conference and just conference period in the state. Grice, they're doing this little left and right fight club thing. And it's true. It is what it is. When you've got Huff this year that is just seemingly firing on all cylinders. Mallard Creek is what it is. I know they've struggled, but I still think that they're a phenomenal team, as Kate's proven. They're still playing. And
Yes,
you've
sir.
had good teams in there, you guys included. And even, I'll throw North Mech. They're not a shabby team. West Charlotte showed us this year. They're on the rise. So I say that, and also kind of throwing it out there. You guys played a very ultra-aggressive schedule. And I wanted to ask, are you willing – and how is being willing to maybe take some lumps early in a season or take a loss here and there because of your conference? How do you feel about that? Obviously, you want to win every game, but playing those tough games and being willing to take a loss in September or October, I think makes you better for this time of football year when it's live or die every week with the playoffs, and how that road has helped you get to where you're at today. And with that, do you think you guys have a fighting chance at another championship with the target on your back? Because it is what it is. Everybody wants to come and get these Chambers because you've been taking a bite out of them all year long in the past 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, man. Playing those tough games early, we knew we're young. We're young up front, and we're young. We're young, period. I don't think people realize how young we actually are. We return our whole offense next year, except for one. I think we return 10 starters next year on our offense. So you want to get those guys battle tested. To prepare yourself for the playoff gauntlet later on in the year. And I learned that from Richard Morgan from Oscar Smith. He used to play a tough schedule early, playing the national games and things like that, because he had won a couple state championships in Virginia. So to keep that thing going, you want to get your kids playing teams that could possibly beat them, so they don't get the big head to say, okay, well, we're gonna play this cupcake schedule and continue to win, and then get to the playoffs and have a mental breakdown. So sometimes losses are good for you, and sometimes those tight games are good for you. So we want to play those tough games, and as long as I'm here, we're going to continue to play them. And we want to play the national type of schedule, so we can be battle tested going into the playoffs at the end of the year.
Yeah, Coach. Like I said, I understand that mentality, and I mean we say the same thing. Like we talk about all these teams we play. We tell them all the time, like, hey, we're not playing a better running back than Hollywood this week, or we're not playing a better O-line than we've seen for this team. And anybody outside of our conference or outside of our schedule, I think it prepares us well. But this week, I mean, Coach, I of course was on the side. I felt like I was gonna make the highlight video this week, like Griner did. Saying it was gonna be tough. Like I thought it'd be a tough fight club for you guys to get through and make it to a three-peat. Do you guys feel disrespected, not just by my words, but by the general prevailing sense that it's going to be tough, for you guys to do so? And then, what are your thoughts this week on a game Porter Ridge, who, in my mind, had the biggest upset from Friday night in defeating Grimsley in convincing fashion?
We invite some of that adversity, man, and we invite to talk about us. It's hard to motivate kids, man, after you won 2 state titles back to back. So we try to find everything to motivate ourselves. So, when you hear comments online or, posts on Facebook, we use that as bulletin board material for our kids to go out and play hard. And it helps. So a little bit of it, we kind of take as disrespect because we are the 2-time state champions back to back. And, and I explained to the kids, I said, man, Floyd Mayweather never lost. But everybody pays to see him lose. People don't pay to see Mayweather win, when they're paying the paper. They're paying to see him lose, and he never loses. I said, so you got to take it in stride. It comes with the territory. But, I don't take it as disrespect. The kids do. So that's good for us. I've been on that. Like I said, I've been on that side. I've been on that side where, you trying to beat a Oscar Smith, and you can beat them if you don't make mistakes. So you kind of discredit them sometimes because they win so much that you just hate to see them win all the time because everybody wants to beat them. So I don't take it that way. But I know the kids do, and we use it to make it feel like disrespect to the kids so they can go out and play hard each week. And I think it's been working for us. So I hope it keeps going for the next 3 or 4 weeks so we can have our kids motivated to play. But going to that Hickory Ridge game, man, I don't even think we needed more motivation than the close game we played, with them the first time we played them. We made some mistakes in that game, and the game was close. But we, as a staff and as a team, we really didn't think the game was actually, indicative of what was on scoreboard because we ran the ball well. We made some key stops on 4th and 1. We blew a couple of assignments, and we knew if we could contain the quarterback that, we would be fine. So we practiced all week trying to contain the quarterback. We knew he was the thing that made them go. And if we could contain him, we'll be fine. And, we've been playing a lot of man-to-man since I've been here. So we played man-to-man tonight and sent the house. And I don't think they expected it because we've been playing a lot of zone this year more than we normally do. Just trying to get the kids some film to say that, hey, our kids can play zone some. Because, when you try to get your kids recruited, you don't want to have them playing man-to-man all the time where they have to turn their back to the quarterback and not be able to show that they can T-step, get out of back pedals, drop to their zone, squeeze a seam, free safety showing range, running from numbers to numbers, trying to get, to the ball. You don't get those things on film in man-to-man all the time. So, we set out this year and said, hey, we're going to play some zone this year, just so our kids can be appealing to the college coaches, showing that they can do multifaceted things. So you're going to blow some assignments, especially when you're playing so much man. You're going to have some bonehead plays by some of the kids because they're not used to playing zone. But when we want to play man and blitz, we can do it because we have the athletes to do it. So we got back to that this week, and it paid dividends for us.
Oh, definitely. And I mean, that was a very political way of you telling me earlier this week that you thought it wasn't going to be very close. I know you're cool with Jupiter Wilson, Coach Wilson, and you love him and all that, but I'm just going to say you did kind of call your shot Babe Ruth style. But, again, that game's over. Let's move to Friday. Porter Ridge, like we talked about, that was a big win. Again, we heard about Grimsley. Two of their guys have been in and out of our Mr. Football watch list, and Travis Shaw and Alonzo Barnett. They handled them easy, scored a ton of points. What are you thinking this week? I don't know if you caught a look at them just yet. I know you guys usually have your meeting in the morning. Have you looked at them, in depth yet? What are your thoughts for this Friday?
Right after I get off with you guys, that's when we'll watch the film. I glanced at it last night before I went to sleep. They're a triple option team, so we're going to have to be disciplined, and we're going to have to play our assignment. And I think that's going to be the key. I think that's going to be the key. When you watch a film of them, guys were, not being accounted for. Guys were not being accounted for. They do a great job of executing their plays. They look like Coastal Carolina. They look exactly like Coastal Carolina. So you have to play disciplined football, or that scoreboard can get ugly real quick on you.
Definitely. I understand that. Again, and Grayson McCall coming from that program, I mean, there's no makes, understand why he's being successful at Coastal. But definitely, we look forward to seeing what you guys are going to do this week. I mean, big time game. I mean, and, we talked about the Fight Club. You go from here, potentially looking down the road at maybe a match between a Mallard Creek or a Huff. So, I mean, how do you feel? I mean, with Grimsley going out, we're seeing other teams being knocked off. I mean, do you feel like it increases you guys' chance? I mean, how are you feeling overall with the bracket?
It's more or less you can't take anybody for granted each week. And that's what I'm going to preach to my kids because Grimsley was a pretty good team. And they knocked Grimsley off, so they're not going to be no pushover. Not going to be a pushover. We got to come out and play our A game and do the things we're supposed to do. And I think each week, man, if you go out and not play well, you could be going home. And I told my kids, before we went to Hickory Ridge, I brought a black trash bag out to the game Friday night. And I told them, I said, this is what you're going to be packing your stuff up in if you go out and lay an egg tonight. If you go out and lay an egg tonight. And that's going to be the motto all week. I'm going to bring that big black trash bag with me each week so they understand that this could be your last game and you're putting all your stuff that's in your locker in a big black trash bag and you're going to be taking it home. And for some of you, it might be your last game playing football. For some of you, you're going on the basketball. Some of you going on the track and those things. So, like I said, just trying to find things to motivate them, man. I think if we do what we're supposed to do and execute our assignments, I think we'll be fine this week. They're a great football team. I thought they're physical. And I think remember we spoke earlier about playing early, the gauntlet earlier in the year?
Yep.
Those are the type of games prepare you for this type of game because they're real physical. Highland Springs was physical. Cardinal Gibbons was physical. So it's something that we've seen before. So it's not going to come to us and surprise us because we done played Huff. We done played the Mallard Creeks. We done played the Cardinal Gibbons. We done played the Highland Springs. We done played the Glens. So we're physically, we're going to be prepared. Mentally, we got to be on board.
Well, Coach, I love the black trash bag analogy. You know, if I ever coach again, I'm going to use that. I mean, that is an exceptional motivational tool because it is what it is. It's very true, very cut and dry. You don't play, you don't go on. So, so that's great. And I have a feeling that it resonates very well with those young men out there who are playing on the field every night. But one of these days, you might be using a trash bag or a box to pack up your office and hang up the coaching whistle. And when that does, you know, there's so much more to Coach Glenwood Ferebee than the championships you've won, the innumerable amounts of wins you've accumulated. What do you want your players and your community and your colleagues, your peers, your brother and coaches all around the state and the nation? What do you want the legacy of Coach Ferebee to be when you decide to move on to your next stage of your career?
I cared about kids. Early in my career, I had a couple of kids that were murdered. So I don't take what I'm doing for granted. I don't take what I'm doing for granted because I know those kids look up to me. They look up to the guys on my staff. So when I leave out of here, I want, everybody to say, Coach Ferb loved his kids, throughout the wins and losses, because I wasn't always winning. So I appreciate the wins now even more than I did back then. But I also appreciate the relationships that, I'm building with these kids and seeing them go off to college and mainly doing the right thing, not being out in the streets. And I think those are the biggest wins that coaches want. Our kids going off to college and not being out in the streets doing things that they're not supposed to be doing. And when I hire coaches, and this may sound funny, I don't even ask them coaches X and O's questions. I don't. And it may seem strange, but I was taught a long time ago that I should know every position on the field. So I take pride in learning every position on the field to be able to, to coach the guys that I have on the staff, to be able to coach the position. But you can't coach character. You can't coach the guys to care about kids. They got to genuinely have it or they don't. So I surround myself with guys that actually genuinely care about kids and wanting them to do the right things. And I think that's why we're successful. Do we know all the X's and O's? Nah, we don't. Do we practice like normal people do? Nah, we don't. But what we do well is make sure our kids are doing the right thing, and we're busting our butts trying to get them up out of here to go off to college. And I think that resonates to our kids that, the coaches care about them and they want to run through a wall for us.
Definitely. I think you can see that, resonates with the kids, and you can see they act in that same way. Coach, I've got to ask, the common question I ask a lot of coaches, you've blessed me with a lot of great advice, myself and, any of the times that we get up and we talk. What would be your advice to a new coach starting out, as he's trying to work his way through his career?
You're gonna have to take the jobs that require work. And before you get those jobs, you want to make sure you're working the job that you're at and doing the things that you need to do, for the coach that you're coaching for, and preparing yourself to be a head football coach, whether that's, like I had to do, learn every position on the field. Doing the dirty work, washing clothes. Because at this stage of my career, I don't want to have to do all that stuff. If I have to do it, then I'm gonna have to find somebody else to come on staff to be able to do it. And I think when you do things like that, man, you get the jobs that you want because you put in the work and you put in the time. And sometimes it ain't about the wins and losses. You want to be doing the right things by the kids. You want to be doing the right things by the head football coach that you're coaching for. And then when you do get your job, you can do it your way. And this is the thing that I've learned as an assistant over the years. You're not going to always agree with your head football coach. You're not. You learn lessons. Some lessons are good. Some lessons are bad. You take the ones that you want, leave the other ones there. And then when you go build a program, do realize you're going to have guys on your staff that's going to be questioning you as well. So just be a good assistant football coach, man. So when you become a head football coach, that karma doesn't come back to you. And I think I've done that over the years, and I think that's why I'm successful now because I put in the groundwork when I was young. My first job, we had five assistants on staff. I think it was 6 coaches on staff. I drove 30 minutes, 45 minutes to work every day. I stayed at the job from 6 till 8 o'clock at night. I picked kids up that didn't have rides, piled them in my car. My dad piled them in his car. And we taught the kids football. So I put in that groundwork that a lot of people don't see behind the scenes. And I wasn't always winning. So now that I'm at this job, it's one of those things where I got guys on my staff now that, take care of all those things. They take care of all those things. So they make my job easy. And that's why we've been successful. It ain't just me. It's the guys on the staff doing the little small things like washing uniforms, doing the practice schedule, doing the recruiting and things like that help our program strive. So if you're an assistant coach looking to be a head football coach, do those things for your head coach now. So when you get your job, you know what it looks like when you're hiring guys to be able to do those things for you.
Definitely. No, that's sound advice. And again, it's on par with a lot of the great things that you've given me. One last request, Coach. If Grice is not right and you guys do get the three-peat, can we get more of a celebration from you than just kind of standing there looking stoic? Like, I know you're fun, but like you have these people out here thinking you're not fun. Can we get something, Coach? Like, I know you're a fun guy. You have me laughing all the time, but you just this whole serious-faced, good job. Can I get a gritty? Can I get something like your kids, man? Something?
I got you. I got something special for you. If you watch it, I got something special for you.
So don't renege on the bet now.
I'm not.
Man, hey, Coach, like I said, I love you. I'm appreciative to have you on here. I'm thankful for you personally in my life. I'm glad we could get you on here to talk about yourself. I always say you're the most unassuming back-to-back state championship coach that we've ever had in North Carolina State history. If I could speak on the record books. But, Guru, another great interview with another great coach.
Yeah, Coach Ferebee, we appreciate you coming on here with us today on Talking Preps OT, going for your third straight championship there at Chambers High School. We appreciate your time, and I'm going to look forward to watching this run as well. And if I can provide some bulletin board material, hey, I'll do it for you as well. Just don't take it personal against me, but hey, we'll do our part for you.